Yo, what is going on, Guardians, and welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. Hey, in this video we're going to talk specifically about the Nightstalker subclass in PvP in Destiny 2. And just like most subclasses in the game, the Nightstalker has some high points and some low points, some strengths to leverage and some weaknesses to keep in mind before you YOLO into a firing squad of Midas locking down a lane. There are three main things I want to focus on in this video, and that's the Nightstalker's neutral game, the super, and the best pairings with the subclass in terms of weapons, armor that's exotic or otherwise. So first off, let's address the neutral game. Now, if you're unfamiliar with that term, by neutral game we mean the common abilities that the subclass has, like its basic movement, grenades, class ability, and melee abilities. For the Nightstalker, the neutral game is pretty exceptional, just like it was in Destiny 1. It has a lot of synergy and utility in PvP. Now, the Way of the Trapper is, in my opinion, the most obvious choice in PvP, with the ability to use dodge to activate invisibility on command, snare smoke bombs, which ping the enemy's radars for confusion, bait them in, or take aggro off of you, damage and disorient, slow opponents. It's just too stinking good. Now let's talk about those things individually for a second. Smoke bombs. They are so good. When you find yourself surrounded, you can toss it on a wall and run in the opposite directions. Opponents often aggro on the smoke because it shows up on their radar as an enemy. They push the blip, activate the smoke, take some damage, and get slowed in the smoke, and you can either pounce on them or take the opportunity just to run away. Smoke can be used easily to win a 1v1. You toss it and you break line of sight, allow it to detonate, then re-engage and mop up the kill with little effort. Now in Destiny 1, the Wombo combo was exceptionally strong. I actually don't recommend you go for this in Destiny 2. This was a move where you led with the smoke and instantly toss your grenade to hit the opponent nearly simultaneously. And this combo is less effective in Destiny 2, and it's really not even that necessary. If you land the smoke, you don't really need to worry about wasting the grenade anyway, not on that opponent. Your grenades are better used to zone off doorways and choke points instead. So let's talk about grenade usage. This comes down largely to preference, but for me, I've landed on using void walls over spikes and vortex grenades. They do some significant damage if placed well, consistently tag enemies around corners because of the way that they fan out in a line, and they help tag up enemies before they come into view so regularly. I use them to block off doorways as well. You just have to get used to the way that they activate. You toss, and usually the grenade will fan out in a perpendicular angle to the direction that you tossed it initially. Each grenade has its own strengths, but I just personally feel that the Void Wall works best with the other utilities in the Nightstalker's belt. So we talked smokes, we talked grenades, now let's talk dodge. There's no real bad choice between marksman and gambler's dodge, just pick the one that you feel you use the most. Personally, I use gambler's dodge almost exclusively. I like the animation, the distance that you lunge, and especially the instant cooldown on my smoke grenade when I dodge near someone, since I use smoke grenades very regularly. But being able to activate invisibility on command is so good. It's arguably the best thing that the Nightstalker can do. I often toss the smoke, then dodge to go invisible, and allow the opponent to aggro on my smoke grenade instead of me. You become the hunter and they become the prey. Invisibility also takes the opponent's aim assist completely away. It's wonderful. Lastly, when talking about the Nightstalker's neutral game, we have to address the basic movement of the hunter. The jumping mechanics of the hunter are, in my opinion, as someone who regularly plays all the classes, they're hands down the best jumps in the game for PvP. You have directional control that goes unanswered by the other classes. You can change directions mid-air with a strafe jump, and this makes the Hunter the best subclass in the air. I don't mean to say that the other subclasses are bad in the air, I'm just saying that they're nowhere near as good. The other classes have their strengths, but this is just one area where the Hunter outclasses the competition. And we'll talk about that aerial mobility again later in the vid when we discuss good pairings. Now, we have to talk about the super. This is a low point for the Nightstalker, and I mean a really low point. The Nightstalker's Shadow Shot is atrocious in PvP. One, it doesn't do nearly enough damage to kill an opponent with a direct hit. In fact, it barely pops their shields. Two, It doesn't even suppress on direct hit like it did in Destiny 1, and it takes forever to reach out and grab people. And 3, your damage resistance while casting the super is so poor that you're usually dead before you can even raise your gun back up to put shots on someone that you tethered. It's awful. My best advice for you is to never use it when someone can see you. I almost exclusively use this super now to basically shoot into a room from safety in order to clear the next room. Shoot it into a capture point in control from cover, or slide into a doorway to a room that you want to control and shoot it into the middle and then push in after it. And never panic tether. They'll kill you, then shoot the tether till it goes away, and you'll be a very, very sad human being. That's the best advice that I can give you. Don't expect to wipe good teams with this super. Use it to clear a room and force them into the corners where your grenades will be more powerful and pin them in. Lastly, let's talk pairings. Basic weapon pairings that are good with the Nightstalker include sidearms, hand cannons, and SMGs. When you use a smoke grenade on an opponent, these weapons shred. SMGs can eliminate a slowed opponent faster than my dog's farts can clear a room, and so can sidearms. Because of the hunter's aerial mobility and directional control, hand cannons are actually really solid options too. But a jumping hunter with a Last Hope, or a Last Dance, or even a Rat King is quite the threat on the battlefield. And Rat King gives them invisibility after their kill, especially when coupled with a kinetic weapon reload mod. It helps them vanish fast and line up their next kill, making them one of the most capable subclasses for taking on multiple opponents in Destiny 2. In terms of exotics, there are 2 exotic armor pieces that stand out to me for PvP. The Trick Sleeves are exceptional when coupled with things like the Last Hope and the Rat King, which already fits so well with the subclass. Add these into the mix and you can leverage multiple strengths of the Nightstalker simultaneously, making you an incredible threat up close. The other is the Foe Tracer, which makes pushing enemies you've already engaged so much easier. I use it almost exclusively now, but it does have one drawback, and that is that it's ugly, ugly, ugly. It's so horribly grotesque that I often remove it in social spaces, then put it back on just as I'm queuing up a match. If I could transmog and make it look like a completely different helmet, I would in a heartbeat and never look back. The last thing I want to say about pairings in regard to the Nightstalker is this: give some good thought to your mods. I run armor mods that reduce the cooldown of my dodge, melee, and grenade abilities, and reload my weapons faster depending on my loadout, kinetic or energy. I don't bother with counterbalance mods. I know my recoil patterns and I control them manually. I want those abilities back sooner so that I can get in the mix and punish these hand-holding, scout rifle-toting sissies for playing Farmville in the back of a lane. Overall, I think the Nightstalker is one of the best subclasses out there for people who like to play aggressively and don't mind taking the time to learn the technical side of D2. Once you learn to leverage the smoke grenades and void walls and invisibility perks and pair the right mods and weapons with the strengths of the subclass, you can have an exceptionally dynamic playstyle in the Crucible and unpaste your buttocks from the back wall of the map and comfortably insert yourself in the center of the fighting and never die. Okay, that's a bit of an over-dramatization, but you get what I'm saying. So thanks for watching, friends. I appreciate it, and I will catch you in the Crucible.